Welcome to the Central Pennsylvania Real Estate Investors Meetup podcast, keeping you up to date with what is happening in the York, Lancaster, and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania real estate markets.
Welcome to the Central PA Real Estate Investors Meetup podcast. My name is Chad Eisenhart. I go to the local real estate meetups in York, Lancaster, and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and rebroadcast the meetup in their entirety. Whether you're a new investor looking to get started or in 100 doors, meetups are a great place to connect with other like-minded individuals, including buying and selling your deals and staying up to date with what's new in your local market. I'm a buy and hold investor focused on single-family, multifamily, and self-storage in York, PA, and can be found at chadbuys.com. This week, I'm at Wealth Builders of Central PA, hosted by Anthony Lynam of CR Property Group and Integrity Home Buyers. This evening's speaker is Brandon Knoess. He is a local investor and can be found at Proverbs221properties.com. Brandon does a mix of fix and flips, buy and holds, and wholesale deals, and has a small team around him. He currently works in both Pennsylvania and Virginia markets. Brandon discusses the number one thing to learn is sales. You need to learn to sell yourself. How to learn to budget for construction costs, how to find deals, having a mentor, how to learn to just get started in business, going 3 questions deep with sellers, why your job is to solve big problems, why learning is his top focus, how to learn wholesaling, negotiating strategies including mirroring with questions, how closing actually works when you're signing a contract and the seller and the buyer are both at settlement on settlement day. And now on to this week's episode.
So welcome everybody, appreciate everybody coming out. My name's Anthony Lynam, Director of Operations at CR Property Group. We started Wealth Builders last year around this time, so we're almost a year in now. Some of you have been here with us just about that whole time, so appreciate you guys continuing to come out and support the group. What we like to do here when we get started is if there's anybody new to the group, just ask you to stand up and introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about yourself or what your investment goals are. That helps the other people in the room know who to network with. The primary purpose, 2 primary purposes of these meetups is 1, you guys get to know each other, help each other make deals, find deals, and so on and so forth. And then the second objective is for us to provide the education to you guys. CR Property Group puts these meetups on, pays for all of this. The owner, Eric Brewer, has been in business with CR Property Group for 15 years. And he really just decided to do this as a way to give back. We're part of a large national mastermind that, quite frankly, we get all of our business ideas from. And we just feel that, a lot of what we do and what we've been able to accomplish has been given to us. So this is our way of giving back. So again, appreciate all you guys coming out. Tonight we have Brandon, I'm going to hopefully not, Kiness. Yeah. Thank you. So Brandon Knoess is here. He's a wholesaler in the area. We've actually bought 3, I think maybe 4. Something like that. So we've bought 3 or 4 properties from Brandon just in the last couple months. Mm-hmm. So Brandon obviously is successful enough at wholesaling that he can sell them to us. So he's good at what he does. Just a total class act, which is why I asked him to come here. Just a regular good guy. And, I wanted you guys to learn, hey, Brandon started this from scratch, right? Yeah. Essentially just call it out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. So wanted you guys to see his success because I want you guys to know that you're able to do the same thing. It doesn't take, a company with, millions of dollars to invest to do wholesaling. And it doesn't take that kind of money to start in real estate or be an investor. So I wanted you guys to have the opportunity to learn from Brandon today, and we'll get to his presentation here in a second. One of the things that I really love about this, and I asked Brandon, hey, would you mind coming and just doing sort of a panel discussion is what I call it. Skip the presentation. A lot of times the presentations are dry. You might learn, a little bit, and trust me, this is coming from the guy who does the presentations. There's a lot of information in those, but I truly believe you learn a lot more from organic questions, from organic conversations, and just following where those might go. What's important about that is that we get interaction from you guys in the audience as part of the group. Like, be sure to ask a question as soon as it comes to your mind. Raise your hand, we'll stop what we're doing and we'll let you ask the question. That's what's gonna make this great. Everybody else will learn from your questions as much as they will from Brandon and I up here chatting back and forth, or me interviewing Brandon. So if anybody's new to the group, would you mind standing up real quick and just introducing yourself? Go ahead.
Hey everybody, my name is Preston Daly. I'm a wholesaler, and I'm looking to possibly purchase my first investment property within the next year.
Good. Congratulations, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm Susan Barnes. I have rental properties in the family in Florida, had in New Jersey, but we had to get rid of that. My partner and I are looking to get multi-families. I think we're focused in New Jersey right now. My partner's also actually a wholesaler. We're kind of dabbling in that. I maybe want to do terms deals, and I'm also a licensed agent in Pennsylvania.
Welcome. Thank you for coming. Anybody else? You guys have all been here before. Go ahead. Okay. And when you say buy and sell, do you want to fix and flip?
Yeah, somewhat.
Okay.
More like a
Gotcha.
More so multi-family, long term. But mainly start off with some wholesale, build up some funds.
Would you mind telling the rest of the group what BRRRR is?
Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and then get the last one.
No, that's it.
That's it?
Yep, 3 R's. You got it. Good job. So the BRRRR method, I'll just 2 seconds. The primary goal of that, you can do it now more so than in the past because lenders are willing to let you cash out on that refinance. So the BRRRR method really is designed so that you make a profit on your renovation and you get to keep it. Make sense?
Right. Yep.
So it's just like flipping, but you're going to keep the rent. You're going to keep it as a rental. The flipping part is when you refinance it, you get cash out.
Right.
So you get a profit and you get to keep it. That's the BRRRR method. So thank you.
Cash out, is that taxes or income, you know, or is that how does
It is not. And that's another point, which is it's tax-free money. If you're, that's tax-free money. Consult your tax accountant, not Anthony Lynam.
Yeah.
But this should be tax-free money.
Okay.
Okay. So if you were to flip it, you're going to get capital gains tax on that. Your profit from flipping it.
Right.
But if you flip it, you're going to make more because you're going to sell it at 95 to 100% versus refinancing at 80%. Good. Anybody else new? Want to introduce yourselves? Go ahead.
My name is Jessie. My partner and I are in the Harrisburg area. We're new to the real estate investing. We're looking to build a long-term deal, properties.
Okay.
We're still on that first season.
Awesome. Welcome. Well, thanks for driving down. There's another meetup in Harrisburg. If you want me to tell you where that is and who does them, I can connect you. And we see our property group just recently started doing a lot of renovations in Harrisburg as well. So I can help you out with the different areas and stuff there. Anybody else?
It's not my first meeting, but it's been a long time, so I'll just reintroduce myself. My name is St. Clair. Been a landlord for 25 years, wholesaling for about 5 years, and short-term rental operator for a little over a year. Just want to let you know who I am, what I do. I'm a teacher full-time, that's what I do during the day, but then have my investor business after that. So.
Welcome again. So now I remember, if you said you were a teacher, then I remembered meeting you before. So welcome everybody, and for the people that didn't stand up or introduce themselves, they've been here before, but the point is, after this, get around, network with each other. It's a really good way to help each other make deals, right? I mean, Anthony, you've been here a while, you know, meeting people in a group's huge value, right? So without further ado, We'll get started with Brandon. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I was kidding. So my name is Lamin. I'm an SAP consultant. Just trying to get into the real estate in long-term growth. Haven't started yet, but I'm here to learn.
Welcome. Any specific aspirations, goals with real estate?
I don't know yet. I'm already invested. Didn't buy nothing yet, but really just invest my money in certain whatever files. I don't know where to start yet. Stacks and stuff. Thank you.
Gotcha.
That's what I've been doing so far. I'm trying to learn and see where I want to start.
Do you mind me asking where you're from?
I live in York, PA. Grew up in Belgium.
Belgium?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Welcome. How long have you been in the United States?
I've been back here for less than a year.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, your accent really stands out.
Yeah.
So, and that's where you were born?
No, I was born here, but I grew up there. I went to Belgium when I was 6 years old.
Okay.
My mom passed away, so I was in a shelter.
Wow. So, I'm welcome. I was trying to think of the right thing to say, but bottom line is I'm sure you have the stuff it takes to be successful. Sounds like you've, weathered a storm. So that's what it takes. So nice to meet you. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. Anybody else new? Want to introduce yourselves? Go ahead.
My name is Eric. I'm new. I'm trying to get into real estate, trying to find out the best entry into real estate. So, basically trying to put my pad, feedback out, make the version out.
Sure. Awesome. Welcome. I think Anthony was up here hooting and hollering earlier, just saying how much you've learned from these groups. It's definitely a lot of value. And it's not just this group. Like Chad, you go around to how many meetups a month?
4 or 5.
So 4 or 5. I mean, and how long have you been an investor?
I stopped in 2012 and I came back about a year ago.
So how many years experience do you have?
20.
And I mean, how much do you pick up at meetups that you go to even now after 20 years of experience?
Bought a house from Brian
So
from your meetup. Thank you.
Brian, call me next time. Not Chad. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. And the point is, there's meetups all around the area, right? York, Harrisburg. There's two in York. There's one that I know of in Harrisburg. Lancaster, I believe there's
like 3.
3. So they're all over the place. If you're willing to drive 30 minutes, there's education every week of the month that you can go and learn. And with 20 years of experience, you'll still learn stuff. So welcome, guys. Brandon, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So again, my name is Brandon Knoess. I have been a full-time investor for about 3.5 years now. I started down in Lynchburg, Virginia. That's where I went to college, met my wife and everything. I got into real estate primarily just doing fix and flips. The first house I ever bought was actually the one next door to us. It was vacant when my wife and I bought our house, and I had no idea what I was doing. I just kept, every time the people they'd only come to the house like once every 6 months and pull stuff out, and so anytime I'd see them, I'd run over there and bug them. And they ended up selling me the house for, I think it was like 65, and we put about 30 grand into it and ended up selling it for like 140, and after that I was hooked on fix and flips. So I did strictly fix and flips, a couple rentals here and there for basically the first 2.5 years. Didn't really do any wholesaling, and then really just in the last year started to get into wholesaling. Basically I had too many fix and flip projects going on and not enough crews to take care of everything, and I didn't want properties sitting there for 3, 4, 5 months without getting any work done on them. So the first wholesale I did was a complete accident. Another investor saw the house sitting there and reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you want to sell this before you start working on it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So he paid me 20 grand more than what I bought the property for. it was technically a double close, so not a true wholesale, I guess. But after that, I really started looking more into it, and I'm hoping to do about 15 to 20 flips this year, and I'm hoping to be right around 40 to 50 wholesale deals. We're on a good pace for that. We just got into the York market. You guys were one of our first buyers. I don't know what that was, 3-4 months ago, something like that. So York is a newer market for me. We're starting to get up into Harrisburg now. I actually saw one of your trucks driving around up there today. And I have stuff going down in Virginia as well. So basically we're doing right around 4 a month right now on wholesales, and then like I said, picking up a few fix and flips in between, and then the ones that are really good on cash flow, I'll keep those as rentals long term, and that's about it.
So tell us, and I don't want to get too personal with you, but
Go for it.
There's obviously the personal factor in all this. Like, what are your, first tell us about your family.
Yes, so I have a beautiful wife, been married for 7.5 years. We met in college, like I said, down in Virginia. Her parents live in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, so that's what brought us up here. And I have 2 amazing little boys that are terrorists, and I love them to death at the same time. One of them's 3.5. If any of you guys have had a 3-year-old, you know what I'm talking about. The other one's 1.5, and they're great. And then in-laws, like I said, live in Gettysburg. My parents actually moved up here, not because they care about me, because they wanted to be around the grandkids, and that's pretty much it.
So are you still working a full-time job?
No, I
100%.
100%, 3.5 years. The last job I worked, I was selling exterior remodeling products, so windows, roofing, siding, all that kind of stuff. I sold cars before that. Before that, I sold kitchen remodeling. So I kind of had a somewhat of an understanding of the construction side of things, which really helped with the fix and flip end of things. And you know, as you, I'm sure, can attest, you learn things every time you do one still. Some new issue comes up. But yeah, basically been in sales my whole life, and then the construction side of things as well.
So let's pause there for a second. When like anybody here in the audience gets started, they might not have sales knowledge, they might not have construction knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
First, are there any other areas of the business that you felt you didn't have the knowledge that you had to go get or learn in order to start being successful?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the main thing that I would tell you to focus on, if you don't already have that experience, is learning to sell. Because I mean, every interaction you have with anybody from day to day is you're selling yourself, right? You want people to like you, and you especially want the person that you're trying to buy their house to like you, and their family to like you, their spouse, whatever it is. So selling is huge, and I tried to intentionally surround myself with people who knew way more than I did and were way more experienced in the sales aspect and the construction aspect. As far as the actual real estate itself goes, running comps, figuring out how to even look for properties, all that kind of stuff. Again, I basically found people who were doing it like you guys are doing now, just networking with people, and just started talking with them, saying, how do you do this? What's your best lead source? How are you going about talking to these people? How are you going about finding them? And a lot of people you'll find, like you guys were saying, are okay with giving back to people. They'll be open books. They'll tell you guys what you want to hear. You just can't be afraid to go out and ask for it. And I talked to everybody. I tried to soak up everything I could. YouTube videos, you know, going on Facebook, the wholesaling sites on Facebook, that kind of stuff, and just taking in every little bit of information that I could get. I mean, every single one of us in this room has a device in our pockets right now or on the table that literally has almost all the information in the entire world. So I mean, there's really no excuse as to why you can't go and find an answer to something or find somebody who likely has that answer.
Yes, or mentors being a big takeaway.
Huge.
Can you guys hear us in the back? Can you hear us okay? So. We'll just try to
I'll speak up.
speak
Got
louder. So we'll try to speak louder. If you can't hear us, let me know, so we can sit at the table there or something. So getting back to it, so starting from scratch, I mean, we know you need mentors, right? So mentors may not have the time to teach you the process. They may be able to teach you a bit here, a bit there, right? They may be able to answer your question when you're in trouble.
Right.
But what kind of other knowledge can you get? I love the fact that you said, hey, you have a device in your hand that has all of the answers, right? But where else can you go for information? Facebook's a great one. I'll ask you a pointed question. Like, have you read any books that you thought, like, hey, this is the one?
Yeah.
This is what taught me something.
Yeah, great question. I've read a ton of books. I should take that back. I hate reading books. I've listened to a ton of books. That's just my person. Everyone has their different ways of learning. I do not like reading. I listen to a lot of audiobooks pretty much all the time while I'm driving around. As far as actual wholesaling goes, let me do this real quick because I don't want to get the title wrong. I have it saved in my audiobooks here.
That's completely legit. Like, it's on your phone. You're not making it up.
No. It's down at the bottom because it's been a long time since I read that.
So while he's looking for that, I'll give you guys a great resource. Gary Keller, with Keller Williams. He wrote The Millionaire Real Estate
Investor.
He also wrote The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, which is a phenomenal book. He also has another book for fixing and flipping. So those are two great resources as well. He's a teacher. So he was a teacher before he got into real estate. So everything that he does, and that's why Keller Williams was so successful, was because it's based upon education. It's based upon educating you as the user, or in the instance of Keller Williams, based upon teaching the agent how to do it. Where a lot of these books that you read, they're great resources. They'll teach you a lot in terms of what you need to know, but it's surrounded by a bunch of, glitz and glam, or let's just say embellishments that might make you, move to do something, but doesn't necessarily have the foundation or the nuts and bolts of the education that you need in order to do that thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. So one of the first ones I read, it's just called Wholesaling Real Estate, A Beginner's Guide. It's by Brent Driscoll. That was a great read. And then just a couple, these are all real estate related, not necessarily wholesaling, but good books if you just want to be an investor in general. The book on investing in real estate with no money down, that's by Brandon Turner. He's with the Bigger Pockets podcast, if you ever listen to that. He has a few good books. He has some good books on investing in rental properties and stuff. And then this one was really interesting, and I think it's a good book. As all of you know, investing in anything, there's always risk involved, and I think sometimes you get so excited about things that you forget that you're risking money, whether it's on marketing dollars or you're actually closing on the deal to do a rental property, double close, whatever it is. Real Estate Investing Gone Bad by Phil, and I'm going to butcher his last name. It's like Puszczowski or something like that. But that book was pretty eye-opening because it just shows you all the things that can go wrong, and inevitably a lot of them will go wrong. If you're in the game long enough, and sometimes right away you're going to have failures that come up, and it's good to kind of mentally prepare for that stuff before it happens if you can. So those would be my book recommendations.
That's awesome. So let's dive like right into wholesaling specifically. Okay, right? So we know a little bit about what it would take to get started or to equip ourselves with the knowledge. But like, where do you go? Where do you go for a deal?
Yeah. So as far as going places for a deal, if you are working on a very limited budget, like I was when I first started, Craigslist ads, I got several deals off of Craigslist ads when I started, and Facebook ads, posting on like the online yard sale pages and stuff. It's always good to message the administrator on the page, offer to pay them like $20-$30 and let them post, an ad or two every month in there. That way you don't get booted out, because if you post stuff like that in most of those, you're going to get kicked. But I found if you message the administrator and ask if you can post and offer them a little money, usually it's not much, they'll let you post. And usually those pages have some of the pages I'm on have 30,000 people that are all local in that market, Franklin County, Adams County, York, whatever it is. So I got several deals off of that when I first started. Again, very minimal investment, handwritten bandit signs. There's no like magic sauce to it really. When you're going with a low budget, it's just doing all the things that a lot of the more experienced investors honestly stop doing.
Yep.
Because they have the budgets to do SMS marketing, SEO, AdWords, TV commercials, that kind of stuff. So
You saw the commercial?
I saw the commercial, yeah. I'm not there yet. Yes, ma'am. What's that? Yeah. Yep. Right. Administrator on Facebook page. Yes. Yeah. So Craigslist and Facebook pages are pretty much the same as far as the ad. I'll basically put a picture of a rundown house. I always try and put one that I've bought, just so that you don't have any copyright issues or anything. But basically the ad will just be something simple, and I usually try and make it very personal, because a lot of the ads that you'll see on there just sound very kind of like salesy, more or less. And so if you make it personal, I'll say something like, my wife and I are actively looking for a 2 or 3 bedroom home in this area. It's okay if it needs a lot of work. If you have any, please send them my way. And a lot of times what I've found is that when you make it more personal like that, you tend to get a better response than if you just put something out like, we buy houses, such and such LLC. People just don't respond to it as well as if you make it a little more personal. And same thing on the Facebook pages. Sometimes I'll even put a picture instead of a house, I'll put a picture of my family and just say, we're looking for a house to renovate. And just kind of leave it at that. And usually when you say renovate, people get the idea that you want something that needs some work.
Great tip, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I'm serious. So if you remember from the bus tour that we did, and we showed the different marketing pieces, do you remember that? Yes. We had one with a family picture on it, right? And we had one with like Eric in a suit and tie and Integrity First Home Buyers, and the one with the family picture generated, I think it was like 10 times more leads. Mm-hmm. So the personal touch, the point there is people buy from people and they want to sell to a person. Mm-hmm. They oftentimes don't, in that situation where you're buying a distressed property, they don't want to sell to a big, large company. Most times. Some people will.
Yeah.
But the personal touch, in my opinion, just from marketing experience, is that it takes the wall down, right? It takes down the hesitation that they have to call and talk to a service center or a call center person, things that you would think come from a large company. If they think that they're calling and talking to Brandon directly, his picture's there. So they feel like they already know him, which takes down the barrier, any fear that they might have about calling him and being treated right. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So great tips on how to find a deal, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what happens after they pick up the phone and call you?
Yeah, so I'm a small operation. I have one other guy that works for me and then a girl that is being trained right now. And basically they're usually calling me directly or calling my acquisitions guy directly. And at that point we are basically just running through some basic questions, just trying to get info about the house. I don't want to waste that person's time, and on the same side, my time's valuable as well, so I'm trying not to waste any of my time if I can avoid it, or my acquisitions guy's time. So we're going to ask them some basic questions about the house. We're going to try and get as much info as we can, just asking about bedrooms, bathrooms, any updates that have been done to it, any major issues that they know going on. And then one of the most important things we ask them is why they want to sell the property. And we always try and ask that on the phone initially when we're talking to them, so that when we go and meet with them, we already kind of know, I don't want to phrase it this way, but it is what it is, which buttons to kind of push when you're talking with these people. If you don't know their why of why they want to sell that place, then the chances of you closing them when you go in and talk with them just went down significantly. So we always want to know, and sometimes we know because of the type of lead that we're targeting what it is, but we still want to know. We want to get as much info from them as possible. We use a service called CallRail, which you can basically listen to all your incoming calls and hear everything that's going on. And I always tell my guy and the girl that we're training that we want it to be a 70-30 split. 70% the person that is going to be selling the home talking, 30% us talking. And the reason being is because people respond a lot better when they get to talk to you and tell you about themselves and their problems than if you sit there and talk their ear off the whole time. So we're asking open-ended questions that encourage them to continue talking to us and give us as much info as possible. And then if it's a fit at that point and we think that there's some potential there, we're going to go ahead and schedule a time to go do a walkthrough, meet them face to face, shake their hand, get a look at the property, take some pictures, and at that point we can kind of start running numbers and see if it's going to be a deal for us or not. Sometimes you know on the spot, you get them to sign the contract and close right then. Other times you kind of have to go back. This one might be a little tight, and I'm very cautious about putting stuff under contract that I don't know that I can dispose of. So unless I'm okay with keeping it for myself, obviously I'll be a little more aggressive, or if I'm going to do a fix and flip. Put it under contract. Once it's under contract, it's going over to my title company. They're getting the title work started, getting the process going, and then at that point we're going to start marketing it to our cash buyers and hopefully scheduling open house so they can come take a look at it. And basically at that point, hopefully you have a buyer that's interested in buying it, close in a week or two, and that's that.
So let me take you back to the beginning of that. You had said that you ask them why they're selling and that's important, right? So that's important for them, also important for you. So why is it important? I know you went one layer deep, right? So like for you it's important because you know their motivation. Right. Why is that important?
Yeah, so knowing their motivation is basically you have your income when it comes to wholesaling is going to be directly proportionate to how big a problem you solve for somebody, 9 times out of 10. So if somebody just simply says, oh, I just want to sell it because it's a headache, that doesn't really give you a whole lot of information. I'm going to go a little deeper and say, well, what's causing you a headache? Do you have bad tenants? Is there issues with the home that are causing you headaches? What exactly about this property is causing you the headaches? And a lot of times they'll start getting into, well, the tenants are doing this, this, and this, or, well, I actually got this property because, my mom passed away and left it to me. I don't really want to be a landlord. I'm moving out of town, whatever it is. And at that point, when you're talking to them, you can really start getting deep with them on, you know, hey, listen, I understand that, you know, this is the price that you're looking for on this property. I also understand that, and I'll start listing specific things that they've said, that you've had to deal with this, you've had to deal with this, you don't want to deal with this anymore. And it just kind of slowly, it makes them have a more realistic outlook on how much they can sell that property for to you. Yeah, I mean.
So that's a perfect explanation. Let me just recap what Brandon said because it's really important. Your ability to get the house at a discount is proportionate to the problem that you're solving, right? So if the bigger the problem somebody has that you can solve, the deeper the discount you're going to get. That rarely has to do with the condition of the property. And along with that is urgency. So the faster you have to solve that problem, the deeper the discount is going to be as well. Your ability to wholesale something comes from your ability to buy it at a discount. There's no warm and fuzzy feeling here. You guys got to know that you're buying properties at discounts. Some people get tripped up over like, hey, well, I could have paid this or I could have paid that. If you're going to be successful at wholesaling, you have to know first and foremost in your mind that you're helping that person get out of their situation by buying it from them at a discount. Does that make sense to everybody? You're not robbing people blind. You're solving big problems. And the bigger the problem, the deeper the discount. So I just wanted to be real clear on that because it's tough. These folks have big problems, very big problems. Hoarder houses. When we wholesale stuff, it's not something that you can go in and put paint and carpet in.
Yeah.
Right?
9 times out of 10 now.
No, these are there are structural issues. Nobody else is going to buy it.
Yeah.
You're their so I'll just say this. You're their last chance, last hope a lot of times.
Yeah.
Right?
Before foreclosure.
Because a lot of these issues deal with timing. So if they don't sell it to you, they might be in foreclosure on Tuesday. They don't sell it to you, the brother's going to get it through the estate, whatever. So I just wanted to be clear on that. Going back to the big why, we call it the big why.
Yep.
I just want to focus on this a little bit more because it's my job. I got to go get a glass of water. It's my job at our company to train people on how to do this. So I think it's that important that we just pause and focus on it.
Yeah.
We call it going 3 deep. When you ask somebody why they want to do something, they give you an answer. Then you have to ask them again, well, why is that important? And you can ask that question, why is that important, a lot of different ways. But if you're not trained in sales, you don't have to be. And if you're not experienced, you don't have to be. You just simply have to ask that question, why is that important, 3 times. So when they say, I would like to sell my house, when? 30 days. Why is 30 days important? Well, because I have these things I need to take care of. Why is it important you take care of those things? Right? Okay, well, it's important because my daughter has to be in the new school, can't stand living here anymore, whatever it may be, right? Why is that important? When you go to that 3rd layer, that's where you uncover, at that point, you really start to uncover what you need to do in order to help solve their problem.
Let me jump in here real
Go
quick.
ahead.
So Anthony just reminded me, there's another way of doing what he's doing that I found to be more effective. So another phenomenal book, this is strictly for sales, but obviously you can use it with real estate investing, called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. I don't know, some of you guys are nodding your head, you probably read it. Basically what Anthony is talking about is it's a technique called mirroring. And another way of doing that is when they say, well, I need to sell in 30 days. Instead of saying, why do you need to sell in 30 days? You basically, mirroring is just repeating the last few words that they said of their sentence. 1, it shows that you're listening to them and people like knowing that they're being listened to. And 2, it causes them to automatically tell you more. So if Anthony says to me, I need to sell this in 30 days, I would basically just say, 30 days? and that's it.
In 30 days?
In 30 days. And you put a question mark on the end, they're going to tell you why. And then when they say, what was the next one you used for the why after that?
Oh, no.
What's that? School? Yeah. So, and you can literally just say the last word, school, and just say it like that. And they will continue to tell you their next problem and their next problem and their next problem, and you'll just get deeper and deeper and deeper, and then you'll eventually find that chord that's like, okay, this is the real reason. Like, all those are legitimate reasons of why they have to do that, but all you're doing is just repeating the last few words of their sentence to them, and they're gonna keep telling you more and more and more. And you can do this. People talk to you for an hour straight without you saying anything to them other than the last 3 words of their sentence. They'll just keep going. So just another way of doing it.
So, and you said another really cool thing, which is, and we've never done this with our callers, but I love that you said 70-30.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Like, we set a time limit, like our caller has to be on the phone for more than 7 minutes. That way we know that they let the other person talk long enough, because we can ask our questions in 2 minutes.
Yeah,
right?
exactly, right.
But I want to go all the way back, and I know we keep going back, but it's that important that we circle back to tie all these things together.
Yep.
When you first started, you said, hey, if you learn anything, learn to be good at sales, right? Sales nowadays is not what sales was in the car business 10 years ago. No. Everybody has all the information at their fingertips, so they don't need to learn anything from a salesperson, right? They're certainly not nobody has the patience to put up with a salesy person anymore, right? So you just go somewhere else. So now it's more about service, but the point here is the sales that he was talking about was being able to ask the right questions. That's what sales is nowadays. Is if you ask the right questions and you learn how to discover the answers, that's how you get to a sale, because those people, and I know we said, hey, a lot of times you're their last hope, but they can pick up the phone and call somebody else if they're not in a 30-day time frame. Right? I can buy a car anywhere. I can buy it off of a billboard. I can buy it off the internet, right? Like, you can buy a car anywhere. I don't have to go to the dealership anymore.
And if you're selling your house, as you can see, there's 30 people that will happily take my place and go buy that house.
Right. So now people will sell you the house. The point is, people will sell you a house at a discount because you've connected with them on a layer and a level, right? That only you achieved. You're the only person. They just told you things that they wouldn't even tell their family, because you asked the questions to get to that point. So you said something about connecting with people. I forget what you said exactly, but it was about the relationship that you built with somebody. Right. And that relationship, think about it. Who do you have a relationship with? People that you would tell your secrets to, right? So walking in the door off the street as a wholesaler, having the ability to build a relationship with that other person is going to give you the ability to buy their house.
Yeah, relationships are, people do business with people that they like. That's just human nature 101. So if you can't make that person like you, then the chances of them selling you their home, unless they basically have a gun to their head and don't have any other options, is slim to none. I have a house right now down in Lynchburg that I'm buying from a lady. I've been working with her for 8 months now, and just I got my guys in there to help her move stuff out of her house, move into her new house, move it to the storage units, this and that, and just solve problem after problem for her. She sent me the offer that she got from the other guy for $185,000. I'm paying $160 for the house. So she's selling it to me at a $25,000 discount because I solved more problems. The other guy wanted her out in 30 days, didn't offer to help her move, basically was just saying, hey, I'm paying more, get out. She didn't care. It wasn't about the money to her. She didn't need the money. It was strictly about service and providing that to her and building this relationship with her over the last 8 months. Another example of a big problem, website lead that came in. It was a lady that called me. I went over, looked at the house. I was there within an hour after she called me, which timing's another big thing. But I was there within an hour after she called me. This lady, it was her grandmother's house. Her grandmother passed away, never made an estate. The deed never changed hands or anything, so the deed is still in her grandmother's name. Her mom had moved in the house. Now her mom has dementia and is in a dementia unit, so she can't think for herself either. And now the daughters are trying to figure out what to do with this place. So there's a crap ton of title work that has to be done to get all this squared away, money that has to be invested with attorneys and that kind of stuff to get everything set up. And again, had higher offers from people that didn't know what they were doing. I ended up buying the house for, I think I closed on it for like $18,000. We'll end up selling it for $115 all day long, and I'll probably put 30 grand into it. So it's a big payday on a very minimal investment on a fix and flip that's, again, directly proportional to just solving a big problem for somebody. And I think a lot of times, especially with people who are newer into it, is a lot of us just want to take the easy stuff that comes in that's cut and dry. I know I'm not going to screw this up. I'm just going to take the easy ones, and the hard ones I'm going to ignore and act like they never happen. And a lot of times those hard ones are going to pay you 3-4 times the amount of those easy ones, and the only way you're ever going to learn how to do those hard ones is by trial and error and figuring it out on your own. So, and I've had plenty of crash and burns and stuff that I've screwed up, but that's literally how you learn how to do it. It's just going in, figuring out. I didn't know anything about how to get a clear title, how to do any of this kind of stuff when I first started, and you just learn more and more and more as you mess up. And as long as you're taking those screw-ups and those mess-ups as a way to learn something, then you'll continue to be successful and you'll continue to grow in your real estate investing career.
That's really good advice. Does anybody have any questions so far? Go ahead.
I got a couple of questions.
Go for it.
What are the most type of people you get that want to sell?
As far as like types of leads?
Yeah, like are they foreclosure, or are they just people who are in a state that they don't want to be in, or what are the leads that are coming through the website?
Yep. So what I've found, and Anthony, you can touch on this with you guys too. What I've found is a lot of the stuff that's coming inbound tend to be a little more distressed. They usually have a tighter timeline that they're working with. Could be pre-foreclosure people, people that have been divorced recently, people that inherited a property. And you, if you guys don't know, you can pull all these different types of lists. You can pull divorce lists, you can pull people who are late on their mortgage, you can pull people who are in pre-foreclosure. All these different types of lists are available to anyone and everybody. Usually the more niche the list is, the more expensive it is and the more money you have to pay to get it. But they're out there. So those are usually, as far as incoming leads to the website, people reaching out to me directly, it's usually people that are more distressed, like I said, pre-foreclosure, inherited properties, stuff like that. As far as the most common type of lead I have, it's usually an absentee owner, it's a tired landlord, not necessarily in a really distressed situation, but just somebody who doesn't want to deal with a rental property or got stuck in the middle of a fix and flip because it was their first one and they didn't really know what they were doing, that kind of thing.
All right. My next question is, how does the contract work with the customer? Let's just say they're looking to put it on the market and you call them first. Is it like a contract that you sign with them and say you can put it on the market for a while? Or?
Yeah, so once you have a contract with that person, if you have a good contract, they shouldn't be able to market it to any other buyers at that point. So you have the right to market it if you have that in your contract. I specifically put in my contract that I'm able to market that property on various websites, Facebook, Craigslist, my website, all that kind of stuff. And it's just about having a good, strong contract. I know a lot of people will go online and print off a contract. I don't recommend that. You really want to have a good contract for a lot of reasons, so I would definitely get an attorney to draft one up for you. But once you have it under contract, they won't be allowed to market it to other buyers at that point.
Last question is, are you buying it directly with your own money, or do you have
Mm-hmm.
Like the lady was saying.
Yep.
About, are you buying that with your own money? Let's just say starting off, like myself, starting off.
Right.
Are you buying that with your own money, that distressed property, and knowing that you're going to put money into it, or are you getting investors? How does that work?
Right. So the fix and flips I do, 90% of them are funded by private investors that I have. I have a guy down in Florida that I work with and a guy in South Carolina that I work with. I've known both of them for years. They're personal friends of mine before they even became investors with me. And then I actually have an older couple that lives in Hanover here they're private investors, but it's kind of like a hard money type thing, higher interest rate. I'll usually only use them if I'm doing something that I know is going to be a pretty quick turnaround. And then like this smaller one that we're doing where I'm going to be in it for like 50 grand, I'll use my own cash for that. But most of the stuff, my wife and I with the funds that we have allocated for this, we can only usually do like one flip at our time on our own, and the rest is all private money that we use.
So you are buying the property though, you're not like marketing it, selling it to someone else. I've thought wholesaling was you get someone under contract and then you sell it to somebody else and you just make like 5 or 10 grand.
You're right. So that's wholesaling. I'm talking about fix and flips. Fix and flips, I use my own private money. When you're wholesaling, if you're doing it correctly, you won't have any money involved in the transaction. Maybe earnest money deposit, some people ask for that. But wholesaling is strictly, you're going in, you're putting it under contract, and you're finding an end buyer to close on it in the timeline that you've allotted in the contract. So if you put 21 days to close on it, you're going to find that end buyer, get him in there hopefully within a few days of your contract, and then let him know, hey, this is when you have to close on it. They're bringing cash to the table to close on it. And then, if you buy it for $30,000 and you're selling it to them for $40,000, you're getting that $10,000 difference, and you didn't have to invest any of your own money other than maybe marketing dollars or something like that.
So let's talk about that for a second, right? So, go ahead, Chad.
So besides your due diligence clauses and out, once that due diligence period expires, do you have an out clause?
So we have the due diligence period. I usually put 21 days in there. If it's a bigger, like commercial type thing or large multifamily, we'll usually try and extend that a little bit. And then I have in mind subject to financial partners' approval. And obviously my financial partner is going to be that end buyer. So that's another clause that I use to get out if I have to, which thankfully has been extremely rare. But that's the other clause that I have in there. Usually what I always have on my calendar that 21 days, and if I haven't found a buyer within that 21 days, then I'm getting out of it at that point. So I haven't even had to use that financial partner's approval. I basically just have it in there as an extra layer of protection. God forbid I forget or something happens.
That's good. So does anybody else have a question about how a wholesale contract works? Because we could walk through it step by step if anybody is questioning a wholesale contract. That helpful? So a regular real estate contract, and this is any real estate contract, you'll have terms of when you need to close it, how much money you need to put down, right? And then essentially what your due diligence periods are. So that due diligence could be title work, it could be special assessments, that's a one-time tax from a government entity, could also be regular home inspections, water, sewer, things like that, okay? So due diligence is a broad term that covers all inspections of the property and the title work, okay? So long as you have, go ahead.
So when you buy a property from, say, foreclosure, that would be wholesaling.
No. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. A regular contract would be from person A to person B. That's it. One buyer, one seller. Okay? A wholesale contract allows you to sell it. You're B, you're buying it from the buyer. Okay? Seller is A. A wholesale contract allows you to sell it to buyer C, okay? And then there's a number of ways that that wholesale contract can work in the middle, okay? The easiest way is an assignment clause. That's the easiest and best way to do it, okay? So you have a contract between the seller A, you the buyer B, and you assign your interests to buyer C. Is everybody with me? Okay, so it's called an assignment clause that gets attached to the first contract. That assignment clause is going to say, I'm assigning my rights to this contract to buyer C for an amount of money. That's where it starts to get a little hairy because the seller has to be okay with you doing that, which means you have to tell them that up front. Then the buyer has to be okay knowing that you're going to make a $20,000 wholesale fee or a $10,000 wholesale fee.
Or you double close on it.
Hold on.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not going to throw that in there right now.
No, I was going to get there.
Okay.
I think we have a couple steps to get there. So that's the easiest, best way to do it is an assignment clause. And when I say the easiest, I mean you don't put any of your own money into that deal. Zero. You don't borrow money from people. You don't put any money down unless you give the seller a deposit of $1,000. But you're not paying any transfer taxes, although you check with your closing attorney there. Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Yeah.
So that's the easiest way because you don't have any investment in it. You're simply assigning your rights of the contract to that third person, okay? But what's important is you have to have the relationship with the seller, that you've built that trust and you've been honest with them that that's what you're going to do. And then you need to have the relationship with the buyer that the buyer says, it's cool. Not worried about you making 20 grand. Thank you for the deal. Does that make sense? That's the art of wholesaling, is being in between and being able to pull off those two transactions. So you got to get it at a discount, but then you need to do that. Again, based on relationships and the trust that you have with people. That investor's willing to pay $20,000, pay you $20,000 wholesale fee if you know what his big why is and why he's willing to pay that. It's easier for him to understand why he's paying you 20 grand. You with me? Now what's your average wholesale fee?
Usually around 10,000 is average. And you'll have big knocks here and there, and then you'll have, I think we just had one with you guys. We made like $2,500 on it. I mean, there's going to be good ones and bad ones. Our best one in York was right at 40,000. So that was an 8-unit, multifamily. What I found is that the bigger the property, usually the higher you can push it up and kind of put that assignment fee up there a little bit. But yeah, average would be around 10,000.
So as a wholesaler, do you even care what this being sold for? Are you getting a percentage or just a cost?
Great question. You're getting the difference in between. So if you're the
So
seller,
you definitely do care.
You definitely care. It's one of the biggest things you care about. Yep. So if I buy a property at $80,000 from a seller and I'm going to wholesale it to another buyer for $100,000, I'm going to make $20,000. So I want to sell it to the wholesale buyer for the most amount of money. I want to buy it from the seller for the least amount of money. Go ahead.
Are you finding that buyer first, or are you just getting the 21 days?
Great question.
Assignment clause, as you were saying.
And then going and finding the buyer.
Okay, so in that 21 days, so pretty much you're saying, hey, I want to do an assignment clause saying that you won't market this house and I'm going to sell it in 21 days for the amount that you told me, the 80,000 that you told me. But whatever I sell it for, this is the portion you're going to get.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So a lot of times, in the premise of that contract, of your contract with the seller, so contract A that you have, is mine's going to say on it, so-and-so is selling the property to Brandon Knoess and or assigns. And that's your key phrase right there, and or assigns. Because I can add someone on with me if I want to, or I can just assign it to an end buyer, which is what I'm doing 9 times out of 10. So that's the key phrase in there. And then I kind of base it on the situation. If somebody is living in the house, you have to be honest with them and tell them what's going on. So usually I'll phrase it something like, I'm gonna find a buyer for this house or buy it myself, and we'll close on it in the next 21 days. And usually as long as they're getting their price, they don't care. I'm not mentioning to them about a markup or anything like that, because they don't care, and 2, they really don't need to know. So I'm just telling them that I'm gonna get the price that they want, and it's either gonna be myself or one of my other partners that's gonna purchase the property from them. And that way, now if it's a vacant place that nobody's ever gonna be in and you can kind of take people and come and go as you want, which those come around too, then a lot of times I won't even say anything, just because you're not inconveniencing anybody. There's nothing to really, you're not trying to move schedules around or do anything like that. So you have to kind of read the situation and go with the situation when you're doing that. The seller does not see, if you have this set up right with your title company, the seller is not going to see the buyer's side of the settlement disclosure. Meaning they're not going to see, if you're buying it from them for $80,000, they're only going to see that they're getting that $80,000. They're not going to see that you're selling it to buyer C for $100,000. Buyer C will see that you bought it for $80,000, unless there's other kinds of ways around that, but for all intents and purposes, they're going to see that, which most good investors are not going to give a crap about that, and they shouldn't, because it all comes down to if those numbers work for you. I could care less if Anthony sells me a deal and makes a $100,000 assignment fee on it if the numbers work for me. That's all I care about. If he made $100,000 on it, kudos to him. Awesome, dude. But I rarely worry about hiding my assignment fees unless I know, if you have a relationship with that investor and in the past you've seen that they kind of get a little pissed off about it, I might do a double close or something like that to hide that assignment fee so they don't know. But 99% of the investors you're dealing with that are buying those know that you're making money on it and they're okay with it.
Go ahead, Nate.
So when you show about the property, you already know from the details that they gave you on the front end what that house might sell for, fully renovated, doing your homework, looking up on the MLS and stuff
Right.
like that.
Right.
So then you need to go in there, right, and figure out how much it's going to cost. Is
Right.
that something you do, like when you have your contractors come in and say, all right, it's going to cost me 40, 50 grand,
Yeah.
and then
Right, good question. So he was asking, for anybody who couldn't hear, if when I go into a house, a lot of times I already know if I'm going to try and do a wholesale, if I'm going to rent it, if I'm going to do a fix and flip. And he was asking if it's a fix and flip, if I'm the one that kind of comes up with how much the rehab's going to be, because obviously that's a very important number when you're doing a fix and flip, or if I get a contractor in there to do it. So. And a wholesale too, you're exactly right. A wholesale, you have to know those numbers when you're doing a wholesale deal too. And eventually you want to get to a point where you can know those numbers off the top of your head. When you're first getting started, if you don't have any kind of background or anything like that, please, wholesalers get a bad name because they lie about how much it's going to cost to fix up a house all the time. It's like every wholesaler's like, oh, it's 10 grand. You walk in and the house is like falling down. It's like a $50,000 rehab. Do not do that. If you don't know, pay a contractor $50 to come out there for 30 minutes, give you a quote on it, and then you'll start to kind of figure out, have him do a breakdown so you can see, okay, he quoted a roof at this much, he quoted windows at this much, he quoted flooring at this much, paint, blah, blah, blah. I've done it enough where I can go in and I just know all the numbers off the top of my head, and a lot of times I can almost do it on just the square footage of the house.
that's what I was wondering if there's like a...
Yeah, so what I've kind of found, and again, this is different if you have an in-house construction crew or if you're outsourcing it to another construction crew. I have guys that work specifically for me, so I get stuff done a little cheaper. I think it's the same with you guys, right?
Yep.
So when I go into a house, my normal number is about $20 per square foot on average. That's not doing anything high end. That's also not the super cheap stuff either. That's just kind of my average. So if I have a 2,000 square foot house, it's usually going to be around 40 grand to rehab it. Now, I'm not talking about carrying costs. I'm not talking about taxes and insurance and all that other stuff that you have to calculate. I'm just talking about doing the actual materials and labor remodel on it.
So then you're really just going and assessing if there's any huge structural issues.
Correct. Correct. And sometimes I walk in and I'm pleasantly surprised, and it
just needs lipstick.
Yeah, it just needs lipstick. I got to paint and put some carpet in it. In which case, most of those I'm keeping as a fix and flip because they're going to be quick, easy money, and I have the private investors to do it. But yeah, a lot of the wholesale deals are usually a pretty intense rehab.
Any more questions so far? So we're going to spend about another 5 minutes here just touching on the renovation estimates. Chris is laughing, we've spent a lot of time getting a standardized pricing tool down for our project managers, our acquisition agents to use while they're out on appointments to get us accurate renovation estimates. I've actually given those sheets out in prior meetups, so if you guys want a copy of it, I'm happy to send it out. It's just in a Google Doc. Do we have sign-in sheets at all? Or maybe just, Chris, would you raise your hand real quick? Just give your information to Chris, and I'll make sure that you get that spreadsheet if that'll help you guys calculate repair estimates.
It's awesome.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we spent a lot of time trying to make it like as easy to use as possible. So I think anybody could use it. So let's wrap up. I mean, I think we covered a lot. Let's just maybe cover that double close real quick and explain what that is.
Yeah, so if you do want to hide your assignment fee from somebody, a double close is basically you're doing both transactions at one time. So you own that house for all of like 2 minutes, and then you're selling it to buyer C. So you're signing 2 sets of paperwork. You're selling the paperwork to buy it as you physically the buyer from seller A, and then you become the seller and sell it to buyer C. And that's all it is. Now, you're supposed to, and again, I guess this, consult your attorney with this, do not take my word. You should have funds in order to close on that house. Now, attorneys will on occasion do kind of funny money stuff and use the end buyer's money, which they're really not supposed to do.
Right.
But you can get a hard money person who will give you what's called transactional funding, where you basically get to borrow their money. Usually they'll charge you like a point or two to borrow it, and you get to borrow their money for that transaction. So they're getting their money back. Usually within 24 hours it gets wired back to them, and then you've been able to buy and close on the property, sell it to the end buyer. They have no idea what you paid for it. Eventually they will when they go back through the records, but that'll be weeks later and it won't matter at that point. But that's a double close.
Go ahead, Brian.
You're correct. So that's why I usually only do it if I have a really big assignment fee, and if it's gonna end up costing me, say, $4 or $5 grand between doing the double close on it and the transfer taxes and deed prep and all that other kind of stuff, then yeah, you do have to take a hit on that, which will come out of your assignment fee, obviously. So yeah, that's something you have to account for when you're doing a double close. So that's why, like I said, I usually only do it when it's pretty up there.
If you're doing the double close, are you doing it like closing at 1 o'clock and at 1:30 the second person?
Generally, yes, usually within a half hour. No, never. Never have everybody in the same room if you can avoid that. So that's a discussion you need to have with your settlement company before you get to that point.
If you're assigning them, would you have all three people in the same room?
I still try and avoid it, if possible. And like I said, a lot of times if you're talking with everybody and everybody's kind of being open and honest and knows about it, it's no big deal. But generally I try and, like, my settlement agent knows not to put everybody on an email together which happened when I first started and scared the life out of me. Because the last thing you want is them talking back and forth to each other. So I keep the emails separate. I don't want them in the same room as each other. I'm usually there the whole time, kind of moving things along and escorting people out of the room. So it's good to keep them separate if you can.
So I'll piggyback on top of that because I've been a licensed agent for almost 18 years now too. So even in regular buyer-seller transactions, I think the benefit of it being in two separate rooms is it really allows that person, buyer or seller, to have a personal experience there. When you have the buyer and the seller in the same room, there's just a lot of stuff that they might not feel comfortable talking about. And again, it's just about that relationship. So if I have one person to talk to, if I'm Brandon and I'm in a room, and I'm working with the seller, then I get to hang out with the seller, right? I get to talk about, hey, isn't it great that you're going to Florida, right? You don't have that personal interaction. Again, this is all about relationships. You don't have that personal interaction with the buyer and the seller in the room at the same time. And sometimes, even when money's not an issue, it just gets awkward.
Yeah.
Right? People will start looking around, they don't know what to say, right? It's a little more awkward. So I always just suggest that you are in the room with your client and whatever side of the table you're on, it's a personal experience. Mm-hmm. And you get to hang out, make it lighthearted for them. So just something to think about.
When you were starting out, how did you vet your cash buyers? Because when I had several failed attempts at properly vetting buyers. How did you start off?
Yeah, so proof of funds is always good, obviously. The downside with the internet is almost anybody can get a fake proof of funds nowadays. So what I do whenever I have somebody who I've never sold to before, and what you'll find as you do more and more wholesale transactions is you'll have a handful of buyers that you sell 90% of your properties to. I know that CR is going to perform when they say, yeah, we want this property. I have 3 or 4 guys that I know because I've done multiple transactions with them that they're good for it. When you first get started and you're trying to pull cash buyers in from everywhere, I'm going to ask for a proof of funds. I'm also a lot of times going to call the number for their lender that they're using and just verify that the funds are there. The best proof of funds letters you can get are coming from an actual bank that you can call and talk to somebody and verify stuff. So that's the easiest way. But when you're first getting started, it's not always at the top of your mind to vet those people when you're going through it. You just want to get in and get done and get a transaction. Yeah. And the last thing you want is for a deal to fall apart that, 1, you're losing money. 2, you're probably inconveniencing the seller now. And it's a big headache. So vetting them is definitely important. I'll even ask for other properties that they've bought in the last 12 months. And then you can go on, you can look up their name on the tax records and see if they've actually bought stuff. So that's another good way to figure out if they're legit or not.
Awesome.
What if a seller asks you for proof of funds when you plan on only wholesaling?
So, good question. So for me personally, it's not an issue because I have private lenders that fund these things for me. And depending on the size of the property, if it's a $20,000 property in York, it's not a big deal. I can provide that on my own. But if you're starting out, you want to have your private lender, you want to have a good enough relationship with them, or your hard money lender who you can email them and say, hey, I need to get a proof of funds. Here's the address, here's the amount. And then they will send over a proof of funds. And they, 9 times out of 10, are willing to answer the phone if someone like myself does want to call them and say, hey, do you actually have these funds? Are you willing to fund this property? And they'll say yes. So getting your private lender or your hard money lender, whoever it is, to do it would be ideal.
Go ahead, Nate.
So you're putting a contract or signing a contract and then selling it to buyers
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to be careful about transferring titles since you're not an actual realtor?
So and you can help me out on this because you're licensed. So my understanding from my attorney is that I'm not actually working as a broker in the transaction. I'm just assigning my interest in that contract to the end party, which is why I'm not held liable as an actual real estate broker and why I don't actually have to be licensed to do it. Now, I will say there's certain states that are starting to crack down on wholesaling specifically. I think Illinois is one of them that I recently heard about, where they're starting to make you get licensed in order to do that. So I'm not saying it's not going to always be that way, and it might be coming in the near future. But as of right now, according to my attorney, and I'm assuming you guys too, you don't have to have an actual real estate license in order to be the middleman in that contract.
It's actually the other way around, which is when you have the licenses when you run into bigger issues trying to wholesale. Because with a license,
you can be held liable.
Yeah, well, at least in the state of Pennsylvania, part of having a real estate license holds you to a moral and ethical, what they'll call it is a moral and ethical code, to provide the fiduciary responsibility to that person to sell it for the most amount of money. So if I was a licensed agent and I take an acquisitions appointment, I actually have to get a form signed that says, I'm here to buy your house as an investor and I'm not acting as a licensed real estate agent. So it's the real estate commission that holds you to the standard that you're concerned about, not the other way around. As an individual, as an investor who's not licensed, you can do whatever you want. Does it make sense? So to wrap this up, guys, I mean, we learned a lot from Brandon today. You make sure you come back. Let me just kind of tie it all together in a bow, right? If you don't know where you are or where you're going, find a mentor, okay? Probably the first best lesson to learn tonight. If you're out there looking for deals, you don't have to pay for them. You can go around, find them on your own, even as simple as doing the yard signs, right? Bandit signs. They still work.
They absolutely
We still do them.
Oh, yeah.
So really, really good tips about where to find deals online, right? When you get a seller who's interested in selling, make sure you qualify them by their motivation. And then make sure that when you work with people that you're diving deep and getting into that motivation in order to solve their problem, right? Yeah. And then lastly, when you get a contract, one of the best ways to make your wholesale fee is to do a wholesale assignment clause on that contract. So make sure that your agreement of sale has, I'm the buyer and or assigns, so that you can attach an assignment contract later. And then the last thing I'll leave you with is make sure that you have a good attorney who's going to help you work out the title issues on the property. The attorneys really are solving a lot of these problems that he's talking about, right? So it sucks to pay attorneys. Nobody wants to put that money out there. But heck, at this point, you have a deal.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to put something into it to get it closed. And who better to help you solve the problems than an attorney that you trust? Like, we must call ours 20 times a day. So, but they're that helpful, right? I get it that, you don't want to be friends with them and have a beer with them, but like they're that useful, and they can be part of your network. So
when you guys get really going in it, a lot of you will probably have your attorney to the point where you can almost text them, because I literally will text my attorney at 10 o'clock at night sometimes, and he never gets upset with me, just because obviously you're bringing him business. That's why he's answering your phone calls and texting you. So once you don't do that the first time you talk to him, you'll lose him right out the gate. But once you built that relationship, done a few deals, you need to have them on speed dial, because they're going to be able to answer a lot of questions that you're not going to know off the top of your head. Like you said, I mean, I call my attorney a couple times a week and just say, hey, I ran into this. What do I need to do with this? And there's a million things that they know how to do that they get paid the big bucks to do. So pay them the $1,000 to fix your problem so that you can go and make 10.
Yep. And they solve a lot of problems with the seller. Another thing too to keep in mind, and I'll leave you guys with this, is attorneys are just like any other business person. Like, they'll work for a fee. If you talk to them and you're bringing them title work, like, they're going to give you some hours for free.
Yep.
You're bringing them title work. If you talk to them and you say, hey, I'm going to need you, I can't really pay you hourly, do you mind, can we do a retainer and do like $500 a month, right? And then they'll take your calls all month. Once they feel like you've gone over that 500, they're going to let you know, right? But they may take a couple extra calls and they're not going to bill you at $150 an hour. They're people too. Just build a relationship with them, make a deal, right?
They can bring you deals too. That's another good way to go get some deals. Talk to divorce attorneys, foreclosure attorneys, all that kind of stuff. Another good way, network with them, get some referrals that way.
Thanks for coming, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. How about a round of applause for Brandon? Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tune in next time to the Central Pennsylvania Real Estate Investors Meetup podcast, keeping you up to date with what is happening in the York, Lancaster, and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania real estate markets.